Hi, my name is Aaron. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent most of those years sitting in the shadow seat at every Jefferson family gathering, close enough to hear the applause for everyone else, far enough that no one bothers passing me the microphone. If you've ever felt like the supporting character in your own family's movie, you know exactly how that spotlight glare can burn. Quick favor before we dive in. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you've ever been labeled the quiet one or the reliable one. I read every story, and honestly, hearing your experiences makes these long memories a little less lonely. I was born between two living monuments to parental pride. Lucas, 3 years older, practically emerged from the womb holding a mock trial. By high school, he was winning debate trophies. By 27, he was already on billboards downtown. Lucas Jefferson, associate partner, litigation genius. Megan, 3 years younger, rode a different wave, but one just as dazzling to our parents. Undefeated tennis champ in college, flawless wedding, Instagrammable twins who somehow always appear in matching pastel outfits. Mom and Dad call her our sunshine, and they mean it. If Megan sneezes, someone frames the tissue as modern art. Meanwhile, I teach first graders to read, tie shoelaces, and believe in themselves. Noble, sure. Marketable at Jefferson dinners, not so much. Those dinners happen on the first Sunday of every month like clockwork. The menu never changes: rosemary chicken, golden potatoes, and an extra-large side of humble pie for me. Picture our parents' colonial-style house. Photos of Lucas in court, Megan in white lace, crystal trophies on every shelf. There is exactly one photo of me, wedged into a corner behind a fern, taken the day I graduated from a state university nobody brags about. Every month I show up with my wife Stella, hoping maybe this time someone will ask about lesson plans or the reading club I run after school. And every month the conversation spins away. Lucas saved a corporation, Megan's husband upgraded the family SUV. Aaron, oh, he's doing cute things with crayons. Stella handles it better than I do. She's 29, bright-eyed, preschool superstar who can convince a room of toddlers to nap through a thunderstorm. She laughs loud, says whatever bounces into her head, and has no interest in polishing her edges to fit the Jefferson shine. Mom privately calls her spirited, Dad mutters babysitter, and every time that happens I feel my insides twist. Because the truth is I once believed if I just earned one more certificate, one more accolade, they'd see her brilliance too. Reflection moment for you. Have you ever tried to translate someone you love into a language your family respects? I used to think the problem was my paycheck. Teachers aren't known for swimming in dollar signs, and Lucas's success set the bar somewhere near the stratosphere. So I took on side hustles the way some people collect souvenirs, tutoring online until midnight, writing phonics curricula for startups, even reviewing children's books for a tiny blog that paid in coffee gift cards. Each gig felt like a step toward that magic figure I could flash at dinner. See, I matter too. But the staircase only grew taller. The tipping point came 2 summers ago when Dad leaned over the table, twirled his fork, and asked, "Son, have you considered finding a side job to help the family? Lucas carries a heavy load." I was running on 4 hours sleep after a weekend workshop, yet somehow my hustle was invisible. That night in the car, Stella turned to me and said, "You know, love isn't a loan. You don't have to keep paying interest just to stay in the family." It landed like a quiet gong in my chest. Lesson learned that evening. External validation is like salt water. You can drink gallons and still die of thirst. But I'm stubborn, and I wanted one last big gesture. My parents' van was wheezing into its twilight years, so I set a 3-year plan, bank every tutoring dollar, every curriculum check, until I could hand them the keys to a brand new SUV. If money really was the only language they spoke, I'd finally speak it fluently. During those 3 years, Sunday after Sunday, I kept walking into that dining room with a smile plastered on like badge of honor. Sometimes Mom would ask Stella why she chose preschool instead of moving up to something serious. Sometimes Megan would drop her twins with us on zero notice because Auntie Stella is free anyway. Each slight went into an invisible ledger, payments I'd someday cash in with that SUV. Here's a question to mull over. Have you ever gambled your piece on a future payoff that might never come? Type yes or not anymore and tell me what opened your eyes. By year 3, I'd scraped together enough. The deposit was paid, the bow was waiting at the dealership, and I was vibrating with hope. I pictured parking the shiny black beast in my parents' driveway, roasting chicken forgotten as they wept with gratitude. Maybe that was naive, but we're allowed to dream, right? Even battle-scarred middle kids get wishful. Then came the text that changed everything. Aaron, honey, brunch is canceled tomorrow. Dad and I are wiped and funds are tight. We'll reschedule. Love, Mom. My stomach sank, but I shrugged it off. Parents get tired, cash runs low, sure. Still a voice in the back of my head whispered, strange timing. I typed back a polite, feel better, and told Stella the show was off. She watched me carefully, then said, you know, canceled doesn't always mean canceled. You sure you don't want to swing by? I pretended to weigh it, but the truth was I'd already decided. If the dinner was truly canceled, no harm done. If not, if my gut feeling about being sidelined again was right, better to learn it now than later. So Sunday afternoon, we hopped into our sensible hatchback and made the 20-minute drive across town. Rounding the corner onto Sycamore Lane, my headlights caught chrome and leather gleaming in the sun. Lucas's new coupe, Megan's candy apple crossover, Uncle Roy's hulking pickup, half the family zoo lined up like a dealership commercial. The Jefferson house was glowing, literally. They'd strung patio lights, the kind Mom says are just right for celebration photos. I felt every tutoring hour I'd worked flash before my eyes. The SUV keys in my pocket suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. Stella squeezed my arm. Ready? She asked. I dug for an explanation. Maybe Mom sent the canceled text before plans changed. Maybe she forgot to update me, but excuses felt brittle. I shut off the engine, stepped onto the curb, and felt the hush of reality settle around us. Through the front window, Lucas was mid-toast, champagne flute aloft. Mom beamed, Dad clapped, Megan dabbed tears. The whole scene was storybook perfect, minus the only son who wasn't profitable enough to feature. For a second, I thought about turning back, hiding my humiliation in silence as usual. Then I realized silence had never protected me. It only preserved their comfort. I walked to the door, rang the bell, and braced for impact. Mom answered, surprise flickering across her face, followed instantly by annoyance. Aaron, darling, what a shock, she said, blocking the doorway like a velvet rope. Behind her, the celebration surged on, a murmur of satisfied voices, clinking glasses, as if success itself had a soundtrack. That confrontation, how the words fell, who said what, belongs to the next part of this story. But I want to pause here before the door swung fully shut and underline the quiet lesson that crystallized in that front porch moment. Someone else's measure will never fit you, no matter how high you jump or how much you stretch. Acceptance purchased is acceptance rented. The bill always arrives. If you're chasing approval right now, ask yourself whose finish line you're sprinting toward, and whether it's even on your map. So what metrics have you been running after that might not be yours? Share below, because nomming them is step one to letting them go. Trust me, I learned the hard way, but learning is what teachers do best. The next time we talk, I'll tell you exactly how the door slammed, what I did with the SUV money, and why losing my family's validation turned into the best lesson plan I ever wrote. I didn't have to wait long after Mom's startled, "What a shock!" The living room chorus behind her fell neatly into place. Champagne flute chime, chair scrape, polite hush as the doorframe unwillingly framed the family's unwanted guest. It felt as though every click of crystal echoed a syllable of the same sentence: you don't belong here. She stepped out onto the porch, easing the door shut behind her so the celebration music muffled to a heartbeat throb. Up close she wore the expression she reserves for neighbors who let their lawns grow too wild. Tight smile, critical eyes, patient only because witnesses might appear. Before we jump in, quick gut check for you watching. If you turned up to a party you'd been uninvited from, what's the first sentence out of your mouth? Type it in the comments. Bonus points if it's under 5 words. You'll see why. Mom, I began, your text said brunch was canceled. It was, then plans changed, she answered, hands clasped like a news anchor breaking a trivial story. Your father and I decided to keep it intimate. Intimate, I repeated, glancing at the row of SUVs stretching down the curb like a luxury car parade. Looks packed. She didn't flinch. Luca's made regional partner. Megan's husband closed a historic real estate deal. Tonight is about their achievements. We didn't want you to feel out of place. There it was, not even gift-wrapped, just dropped like a cracked egg on the porch. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, the kind that used to cue my automatic apology reflex. I almost launched into credentials, reminding her I published an early literacy article last month that one of my first graders finally reached grade level because of the after-school program I run for free. But I stopped. I'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times alone in my car, always ending with me absorbing the insult so the night could continue in harmony. Harmony for whom, though? If feeling out of place is the price of honesty, I said, maybe it's time I pay up. She shifted, sensing I wasn't following the old script. Aaron, I'm not criticizing you. It's simply, you know how conversations here go. Corporate law, investments, future mergers, you'd be bored. Bored, I laughed a little too loudly. Inside, Lucas's toast soared. To new beginnings and bigger victories, the room erupted. Bored, sure. Mom pressed on. Teaching is noble, of course, but these dinners celebrate milestones that impact the whole family. I slipped my hand into my jacket pocket, fingers closing around the envelope that held the key fobs. Leather-bound, dealership logo shiny gold. 3 years of graveyard shift tutoring, of writing phonics worksheets at midnight, of skipping movies because every dollar mattered. The plan had been simple. After dessert, I'd jingle those keys, wheel the shiny SUV up the driveway, maybe get a proud hug that lasted longer than 2 seconds. Silly. Maybe. But hearts bargain with hope, not logic. Another reflection moment. Have you ever rehearsed a grand gesture only to realize the audience doesn't deserve the show? Let me know, and if you haven't reached that stage yet, consider this your gentle spoiler. I was coming to celebrate too, I said, pulling the envelope partway into view. Figured a new set of wheels might make everyone's day. Mom's eyes widened, the first genuine reaction all evening. Aaron, you shouldn't spend beyond your means. You know your salary. Funny thing, I interrupted, sliding the envelope back. I didn't use my salary. I used the side hustles you think are hobbies, the ones that keep me up past midnight but never make the dinner summary. She swallowed, eyes darting to the closed door behind her as though expecting the porch to sprout an audience. We can discuss this. Come inside, we'll announce your gift properly. Will we? Or will it be politely redirected to Lucas's champagne refill? She exhaled sharply, dropping the soft facade. You're being unreasonable. It's not our fault you chose a modest career. Like a trapdoor finally giving way, something in me fell through and hit solid ground on a lower level I didn't know existed. Mom, tonight you lied. You canceled brunch to keep me out. That's beyond preference. That's cruelty. A beat passed. The household hum on the other side of the wall grew louder as if the party sensed conflict like dogs sense storms. She raised her chin. I don't have to justify my guest list. Families set standards. And boundaries, I agreed. I'm setting mine now. I tucked the keys back into my pocket. Her gaze followed them like a begging child follows a dessert cart. She recovered quickly. Well, since you're here, at least drop off that casserole Stella usually brings, the spinach one. Megan's kids adore it. I laughed, the kind of laugh that tastes metallic. Stella isn't tonight's unpaid caterer, and I'm not tonight's comedic relief. Enjoy your evening. I sidestepped, but her hand shot out to grip my arm. Aaron, she hissed, voice tremulous, don't embarrass me. Not after everything we've done. I peeled her fingers off gently. Everything you've done was never for me. It was for an image you guard like buried treasure. Keep guarding it, I'm done. I started down the steps. Behind me, the door cracked open. Lucas's voice floated out. Mom, all good. She turned, blocking me from view, the perfect stagehand clearing a prop before Act 2. I reached the curb where Stella waited, eyes glistening but proud. She knew from my stride the conversation was final. We got in our hatchback, engine purring quiet next to Lucas's 6-figure status symbol. Halfway down Sycamore Lane, my phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. Mom says you're upset. Want to step out back and chat? Don't be dramatic, bro. I silenced the notification and turned the phone face down. Stella exhaled, a tremor in the sound. That was brutal. Had to happen. I flexed my fingers on the steering wheel. They tingled as blood returned after a long tourniquet. Back home, I sat at our kitchen table under the dim pendant light, dealership envelope between us like a hostage negotiator. For the first time that night, Stella looked genuinely worried. What now? First, I'm canceling the purchase, I said. Second, I'm ordering pizza loaded with everything your nutrition blog forbids. She managed a laugh. Both radical choices. Which one scares you more? Calling the salesman feels like admitting defeat. Or marking your first win, she offered. That rang true. Validation isn't always the trophy you present. Sometimes it's the one you stop chasing. I grabbed the phone and dialed the dealership. Dinner time on a Sunday, voicemail purgatory. Hi, it's Aaron Jefferson, I paused. No, scratch that, it's Aaron. I'm withdrawing my order effective immediately. Family emergency. Keep the deposit or mail it back. Either way, cancel. My thumb hovered over the red button. Before hanging up, I added, and thanks for reminding me a car is just metal until love sits inside. I dropped the phone. The voicemail felt like a line drawn in thick chalk, step across, no going back. Pizza arrived. We devoured slices in the living room like freshmen pulling an all-nighter. Somewhere between slice 2 and 3, my phone pulsed again. A group chat titled Jefferson Family Updates, one I never remember joining, lit up. Dad, your mother tells me you caused a scene. You owe her an apology. Megan, need you to babysit the twins Friday. They've missed Aunt Stella. Lucas, seriously, what's the deal tonight? You embarrassed Mom. I stared at the screen, sauce on my thumb, and felt a calm bloom. Block, block, block. Digital erasure of decades-long patterns, as simple as tapping a screen. Let's pull over for another reflection. When was the last time you said no without apology? If you can't recall, perhaps tonight you draft that one-word script and rehearse it in the mirror. An hour later, Stella fell asleep on the couch, arm draped across a geometry of pizza boxes. I tucked a blanket over her, but rest refused to claim me. I opened my laptop, pulled up the project folder for Bright Start Reading, the literacy app I'd tinkered with in off hours. Lines of code and cartoon icons filled the screen. Usually I felt imposter jitters swirling around this side hustle, but tonight those jitters sorted themselves into purpose. If my family needed a metric to measure worth, I'd pick my own metric and let strangers decide its value. Midnight ticked past. I submitted the latest build to an educational software contest I'd bookmarked months prior but never dared enter, citing "not ready" as a shield. The entry form asked for a tagline. I typed, "Teaching confidence 1 pixel at a time," then I clicked submit. When I finally crawled into bed, the house hummed with quiet possibilities instead of quiet dread. Stella stirred, half awake. "Did you just do something brave?" she mumbled. "Maybe," I whispered back. "Will you still love me if it flops?" "Depends. Did you save me a slice?" "2 in the fridge." "Then we're good." Morning sun found me before the alarm. While brewing coffee, I replayed last night's porch scene in my head, testing for regret. None surfaced. Pain, yes, a dull bruise where hope used to sit, but even bruises prove your healing. Halfway through my mug, Dad's number flashed on the phone, unblocked only because I hadn't gotten around to it. I let it ring into voicemail, then listened. "Aaron, this is your father. Your mother is very upset. The least you can do is explain yourself. Call me by noon." No emergency, no pretense, just command. I deleted it. Blocked. The silence afterward felt indulgent, like extra whipped cream. Stella joined me, hair wild, still beautiful. "You seem lighter," she said. That voicemail weighed 10 pounds. I gestured to the trash icon. Gone. She poured her coffee. "Boundaries suit you." "They'll need tailoring. I'm new to them." "That's okay." She took a sip. "First fittings are supposed to pinch a little." We spent the afternoon wandering a flea market, pockets empty, hearts full. Nobody texted. No one asked for babysitting or free tutoring. The world outside Jefferson orbit felt gigantic and strangely gentle, like I'd been living under a helmet and finally cracked it open. That night, the salesman returned my call. He was disappointed but polite. "Mr. Jefferson, the Escalade had your name on it." "Turns out," I said, "my name fits better elsewhere." I hung up and opened a spreadsheet. Line by line, I red-idled SUV savings into future fund, penciling possible uses, house down payment, travel, seed money for Bright Start marketing. Each option felt like choosing colors for rooms in a house I'd just discovered was mine. Eventually, I scribbled one more line, scholarship for kids who need books, not approval, and underlined it twice. Here's the chapter takeaway in case I've buried the lead. Doors slam for 2 reasons, either to lock you out or to nudge you toward a better hallway. The hallway I entered that night was lit by my own decisions, not by the flickering approval of people who'd never seen me clearly. If someone keeps moving the goalposts, stop playing on their field. So, quick challenge for you. Think of one boundary you've been afraid to draw. Write it down privately, fold it up, slip it in your wallet. Let it marinate for a week, then read it aloud to yourself. See how it tastes. You might find, as I did, that the bitterness turns sweet the moment you swallow the fear. I didn't know then how fast things would escalate, how Lucas's perfect career would implode, how Mom would weaponize every relative's sympathy, how flying monkeys would swarm our quiet apartment. But I did know this. I'd turned the key on a cage I'd mistaken for home. And once you hear the click of freedom, even the loudest guilt trip sounds like background noise. Next time we talk, I'll tell you about the night success landed in my inbox, right when Lucas's world fell apart, and how the man who once praised my brother for breathing came knocking on my door for financial CPR. Spoiler, I didn't answer, at least not in the way he expected. The first Monday after canceling the SUV felt like any other. Students wobbling in with backpacks bigger than their torsos, morning bell slicing through groggy chatter, me scribbling objectives on the board while juggling coffee and a stack of quizzes. Yet there was an extra hum beneath the fluorescent lights, like the air itself suspected something was about to crack open. It started at 10:07 a.m., right between phonics rotation and snack time. My phone, face down on the desk, lit up with an unknown Seattle number. I ignored it. 26 first graders spell tiny rebellions the second you glance away. But the caller left a voicemail, then emailed my personal address, then tried the school office. The secretary finally slipped me a pink note. Call Hillary V. Ray, Bright Start. Bright Start, the app I'd submitted in a half-sleep haze after the Jefferson dinner debacle. My pulse quickened, but duty trumped curiosity for the next 5 hours. Sight word bingo, cafeteria supervision, a miniature crisis over whose turn it was to feed the class fish. The moment the last bus roared out, I locked my classroom door and dialed. Aaron Jefferson, a crisp voice answered before I could speak. This is Hillary Vargas, acquisitions editor at Evergreen Educational Media. First, congratulations. Bright Start just won our National Innovation Contest, out of 1,200 entries. I leaned against a bookshelf, knees wobbly. Come again. You're the grand prize winner. The judges loved the adaptive phonics engine and the kid-driven reward loops. We'd like to license it worldwide. I'm sending an offer by email, 6 figures up front, profit share on updates. 6 figures, the number dangled like an unlocked achievement I'd always assumed belonged to other players. My first coherent thought was the scholarship idea scribbled in my spreadsheet. My second was Mom's speechless face if she ever heard. Hillary talked deliverables and legalese while I pressed a palm over my racing heart. At one point she asked, "Is this a good time?" I almost laughed. Good. It was a cosmic mic drop. "Give me 24 hours to review," I said, channeling my inner attorney. A feat comical if you'd seen me during parent-teacher conferences sweating over mild feedback. I hung up and stared at the empty classroom. Glitter from last week's art project winked on the carpet. I thought of every late-night worksheet, every Saturday lesson I'd recorded free for YouTube because some kid out there couldn't afford a tutor. I had proof now that pouring into people creates ripples someone's always measuring, even if your own family is. Quick pit stop for anyone listening. Has there ever been a moment you realized your quiet grind was visible to someone unexpected? Share that spark below. I promise it'll encourage the invisible hustlers scrolling the comments at 2 a.m. I drove home floating. Stella was cross-legged on the rug with construction paper and safety scissors, grading preschool projects shaped like lopsided suns. I blurted the news so fast I sounded like one of her toddlers after too much juice. She launched off the floor and tackled me in a hug that smelled like apple-scented markers. "See," she said, "Karma may take the scenic route, but she's never late." We splurged on Thai takeout and spent the evening reading through Evergreen's contract. Numbers dancing like fireworks, clauses in lawyer speak we barely understood, but one line clear as daylight. Advance payment wired upon signing, low to mid 6 figures. Enough to wipe out our student loans, beef up retirement, fund that scholarship, and still leave breathing room. While we highlighted sections to discuss with an actual attorney, my phone buzzed again, Aunt Julie. She rarely called, so I picked up on speaker. "Aaron, sweetheart, you sitting?" Her voice carried that gossip-unwrapping sparkle. "Luca's lost his job 3 months ago. Big Morrison case fiasco. The firm fired him quietly. He's been keeping it from everyone." Stella's eyebrows climbed. I asked Julie for details. Missed filing deadline, attempted cover-up, multi-million-dollar client penalty. Firm cut ties, golden parachute non-existent. The cousin on the inside confirmed Luca's was freelancing odd legal gigs to mask unemployment. I thanked Julie, clicked off, and met Stella's wide-eyed stare. "The Jefferson retirement plan just went up in smoke," she murmured. "Wonder how long before they ring my bell." Answer: 48 hours. During Tuesday recess, Hillary's final term sheet pinged my inbox, and so did a text T from an unknown Chicago number. "This is Luca's. Need to talk, urgent." I ignored it. When the bell rang, 30 kids marched back inside. The phone buzzed again. "Bro, I'm in town. Coffee?" I pocketed the device. "Not today." That evening, while polishing my resume for the first time in years, strictly precautionary but suddenly fun, I heard a knock. Stella glanced through the peephole, then mouthed, "Your brother." I opened the door a crack. Lucas stood draped in a hoodie and 3-day stubble, clutching a laptop bag like a lifeline. "Mind if I come in? Won't take long," he said, voice stripped of its usual bravado. I stepped outside instead, shutting the door behind me. We walked to the courtyard picnic table under a dim bulb. His eyes flicked to our apartment windows, maybe checking for Mom peering out. Old habits. "Okay," I said, "talk." He exhaled. "I messed up, Aaron, lost my job, my savings are bleeding. I kept it quiet because Mom and Dad would implode. They're already stressed about the house refinance and—" Julie filled me in. He flinched. "Figures, look, I know I've been arrogant. I used to think pressure made me special. But now I'm one missed rent payment from eviction." Silence stretched. Somewhere a siren wailed. Lucas reached into the bag and pulled out a glossy prospectus. "I drafted a consulting startup, legal services for small businesses. Just need seed money to get licenses and a website. 10 grand would cover it. I'll pay you back in 6 months with interest." 10 grand? Less than I'd pocketed tutoring algebra to half-asleep teenagers. Except it wasn't about cash, it was about history. "Why me?" I asked, though I knew. His shoulders slumped. "Because you're the only sibling who answers phones and rumor says you're about to sign a big deal." I leaned back, took in the defeated man who once floated above consequences. Something inside me ping-ponged between pity and vindication. "I did land a deal," I said slowly, "but that money's allocated, loans, future house, a scholarship fund." He ran a hand through his hair. "Scholarship? Come on, dude, that's charity for strangers." "That's the point. Strangers didn't spend decades reminding me I was second-rate." He winced but met my gaze. "I deserve that. I was a jerk, Dad's favorite lapdog. I'm trying to change." Those words landed heavier than I expected. Trying counts for something. I see it every day when a 6-year-old finally writes a W without turning it into a vampire bat. Still, growth doesn't obligate me to bankroll past misdeeds. "Lucas, I hope you do change. I'll send you some free business plan templates and point you to low-interest microloans. But I'm not your ATM." His jaw tightened, then relaxed. He looked down at the prospectus, closed it, and nodded. "Fair. Honestly, I respect that." He shoved the folder back in his bag. "If I build this myself, maybe Mom and Dad's narrative finally cracks." I couldn't help a small smile. "Welcome to building things from the ground up. It's messy, but the view's yours when you finish." We shook hands, awkward, grown men trying new habits style, and he left. Back inside, Stella set aside her lesson plans. "How'd it go?" "He asked for 10 grand. I said no." Her shoulders unclenched. "Proud of you." "I'm surprisingly okay." I leaned against the counter, processing. Saying no to Lucas felt like yanking the last tether linking me to the old hierarchy. Reflection question, friends. If someone who always had the upper hand suddenly needed yours, what boundaries would you hold? Write them down. The future you will thank you. 2 days later, after a lawyer friend confirmed the contract's fairness, I e-signed. Evergreen wired the advance Friday morning. My checking account exploded in a number that made my breath catch. I screenshot it, then deleted the image. I didn't need perpetual proof. The success was already real. Noon that day, Dad called from a masked number. I let it ring to voicemail. "Son, your mother and I heard about some app windfall. We need to discuss responsibilities. Call me." The audacity would have angered me once. Now it felt like background hum. I forwarded the voicemail to a new folder labeled Documentation for Future Legal Safety, then blocked the number. Saturday, the floodgates opened. Uncles, distant cousins, even my grandmother's bridge partner messaged tales of Mom's sleepless nights, Dad's fragile heart, and how family must stick together. Classic flying monkeys. Instead of replying, I posted a single sentence to my private social page visible only to immediate relatives. "Stella and I are not available for financial support. Please respect our privacy." Then I muted every thread. Lesson highlight here: boundaries without enforcement are just wishes. The first time you hold one, it stings. The second time, it merely pinches. The third, it fits like skin. Monday at dawn, I drafted the scholarship blueprint over black coffee. The Bright Start First Gen Fund would pay one under-resourced senior's freshman year tuition every fall. I pictured a shy kid opening that email, feeling the jolt I'd felt from Hillary's call. The thought made my throat tighten in the best way. While tweaking the application essay prompts, my phone buzzed Lucas again. I sighed, prepped for round 2, and answered. "Not asking for money," he blurted. "Just wanted to say thanks. Been digging through those microloan links you sent, eye-opening stuff. Also told Mom the truth." I blinked. How'd that go? "Atomic," she cried. "Dad yelled about family image, but I'm relieved. Might stay messy a while, but at least the air's clean." I pictured the Jefferson dining room stripped of its illusion wallpaper. Maybe transparency could do what my SUV keys never would, etch a new chapter. I wished him luck, genuinely, then hung up. Midweek, the school board announced my promotion, district-wide literacy coordinator starting fall. At the faculty luncheon, colleagues clapped so hard the principal joked about noise complaints. I looked around the room, people who saw value in reading levels, not retail price tags, and felt rich in ways my upbringing had never measured. Driving home, I passed my parents' neighborhood by habit, slowing when the familiar Colonial came into view. The for sale sign on the lawn stunned me. A smaller sign read price reduced in urgent red. A pang of nostalgia threatened. Birthdays, backyard campouts, the scent of Mom's cinnamon rolls. But memories are not mortgages. I pressed the accelerator. That evening, Stella and I celebrated promotion, scholarship launch, app deal, 3 triumphs no Jefferson dinner ever toasted. We danced in the living room to a cheesy 80s playlist until neighbors thumped walls in playful protest. And when we collapsed laughing onto the couch, she traced circles on my palm and said, "You realize you're living proof that success doesn't need a spotlight to grow. It just needs roots." Cue final reflection tonight. What's one buried dream you've watered in secret? Tell us below, nomming it could be the first sunlight it sees. Before bed, I checked email one last time. Hillary had forwarded early reviews from pilot classrooms. Kids loving bright start, teachers reporting confidence spikes. I closed my laptop, heart brimming, and whispered a silent thank you to every child who'd ever sounded out cat with me, treating it like scaling Everest. As I drifted off, my mind flashed to Dad's voicemail, Mom's tears, Lucas's tentative step toward humility. Their gravity no longer pulled me. I was orbiting a new sun, self-worth fueled by purpose, not performance. Next up is the final lesson in this saga. The morning my parents showed up at 6 a.m. with a fresh script of guilt, thinking dollars could still dictate devotion. And the unexpected way turning them away turned hundreds of low-income students toward college dreams. Stick around. The best revenge, I've learned, is rewriting the ending so kindness wins, and the old villains don't even get cameo roles. The knock sounded like somebody was using a battering ram, but my phone insisted it was barely 6:05 in the morning. Stella, half awake, groaned, "If that's another package thief, I'm buying a moat." I peeked through the peephole and caught my parents on the landing, Mom clutching a thick folder, Dad rigid as a surveyor stake. Nothing steals drowsiness like déjà vu. I cracked the door just enough for politeness. Mom's eyes were already red-rimmed, mascara smudged from the kind of tears people rehearse in mirrors. "Aaron, sweetheart, can we come in? Your father has something important to say." Important in Jefferson code meant expensive. I stepped onto the mat, closed the door behind me, and gently steered them toward the courtyard instead. If you've been following this saga, you know the courtyard picnic table is my Switzerland, neutral soil where guilt trips can't quite get traction. Dad cleared his throat. "We've listed the house." I'd seen the for sale sign, of course, but hearing it aloud felt like a final bell. "I hope that brings you relief," I said. He ignored the sentiment. "The market's soft. We'll be lucky to break even after the second mortgage. So your mother and I," he glanced at her and she produced the folder, "have run the numbers. With a modest bridge loan from you, say $120,000, we can keep the property, refinance at a lower rate, and pay you back in 5 years at 7%. A bridge loan, 7%. They'd turned my sonship into venture capital, apparently. I almost applauded the specificity. Mom added, "We hear Bright Start is doing wonderfully. You could help all of us and still have plenty left for whatever you need." Stella opened the apartment door behind me and leaned against the frame, arms folded, silent but solid. Backup never looked so much like grace. I took a breath. "I'm sorry you're in this bind, I truly am, but my answer is no." Mom's tears flipped to anger so fast it felt like a lighting cue. "After everything we invested in you." "You invested in Lucas." I corrected, calm, surprising even me. My entire childhood was a hedge fund for his future, and I accepted that, but my app money isn't a bailout for choices I didn't make. Dad's voice hardened. Family obligations don't vanish because you wrote a few lines of code. Neither does self-respect, I replied. You're welcome to come inside for coffee, but the subject of money is closed. Mom looked like she might faint, but Dad steadied her and muttered, "We don't want your pity coffee," before turning away. They descended the stairs slower than I'd ever seen them move. Door shut, heartbeat steady. Funny how boundaries get sturdier each time you test their hinges. Stella exhaled, "You okay?" I nodded, then laughed at the absurdity. Pretty sure I just foreclosed on my childhood. She wrapped her arms around my waist. Then we'll build you a better one, open concept, no toxic mold. Quick check-in for everyone listening. If a loved one demanded money you knew you, never see again, how would you respond? Drop a short answer below, maybe loan, gift, or nope, and tell us why. Your take could help someone wrestling with the same dilemma right now. The fallout came swift and predictable. Dad's bridge loan spreadsheet found its way into a family group chat with a caption that would have made a soap opera writer blush. Our son refuses to save U.S. from homelessness. I skimmed it long enough to marvel at the creative embellishments before mooting the thread for a year. Meanwhile, real life kept blooming. Evergreen's first royalty statement landed, and it already surpassed the advance. My district posted reading score gains across every grade using Bright Start in pilot classrooms, so the board voted to license it system-wide. The scholarship paperwork cleared, and I emailed every high school counselor within a 100-mile radius. Applications open. First award this spring. Lucas sent periodic updates, short, humbler by the week. He secured a microloan, assembled a bare-bones website, and was paralegal moonlighting to cover rent while the consulting service ramped up. His final text before Christmas read, booked 3 paying clients. This feels earned. I replied with a simple thumbs-up, emoji economy at its finest. December rolled in, and with it the first batch of scholarship essays. Stella and I converted the dining table into a scoring war room. Mugs of cocoa, stacks of personal stories so raw they felt like diary pages. One essay stopped me cold. A senior named Tasha wrote about tutoring her little brother nightly under a flickering street lamp because their apartment's power died half the month. Her closing line, "I don't know what my dream job pays. I just know it starts with a college ID badge." My eyes blurred. Stella slid over a tissue and whispered, "Found our inaugural scholar, didn't we?" We invited Tasha and her mom to the school auditorium for what she thought was a final interview. The principal handed me the microphone. I told the crowd of teachers and a few confused students that education is a relay. Each of us passes a torch forward, hoping it burns brighter in the next hand. Then I bent to Tasha, pressed an envelope into her shaking fingers, and said, "Your tuition's covered. Go light your road." Tears, cheers, more tissues. Somewhere amid the applause, I realized any lingering craving for Mom's approval had evaporated in that flood of gratitude pouring off a teenager I'd met 10 minutes earlier. A week later, Lucas called, voice upbeat, borderline giddy. "Got news, bro. The legal aid clinic promoted me to full counsel. Minimum salary, maximum impact," he confessed, but the purpose felt richer than his old corner office. "I finally get why you stuck with teaching," he added. "Helping people who can't return the favor, it changes you." He hesitated, then said, "And for what it's worth, I told Mom and Dad your answer was the right one. They need to solve their problems, not outsource them." That admission felt like a glacier calving, massive, noisy, long overdue. We hung up with plans to grab tacos after the holidays. Progress, not perfection. New Year's Eve, Stella and I skipped every invitation and built a blanket fort in the living room, projector scrolling retro cartoons on the ceiling. At midnight, she clinked her cider against mine and asked, "Any resolutions?" "Just to keep watering what's already growing," I said, "and maybe learn guitar." She laughed, but I ordered a beginner's set the next day. Early spring brought one last ripple from home base. The Jefferson house sold below asking, and my parents moved into a leased condo across town. Word filtered through Aunt Julie that they'd relinquished the country club membership and were adjusting to, quote, simpler living. No postcard arrived, no olive branch. Oddly, I felt relief. Distance can be a mercy when closeness keeps wounding. March sunshine coaxed Stella and me onto a park bench with iced coffees. Kids swarmed a jungle gym. One little boy in a superhero cape tried to convince strangers he could levitate if they just believed hard enough. Stella nudged me. "That was you at 6, she teased. I watched the Cape flutter, thought about Tasha's scholarship, Lucas's restart, bright dots of resilience scattered across my timeline. You know, I said, I used to think the opposite of belonging was exclusion. Now I think it's self-betrayal, staying where the doors open but your heart's locked outside. She squeezed my hand. Then here to living with the right keys. Reflection break. What door in your life looks welcoming but empties you every time you step through? Maybe it's a one-sided friendship, a draining job, or even that internal critic measuring you against someone else's yardstick. Name it in the comments if you're brave or just right, closing it, if anonymity feels safer. Sometimes typing the intention is the first click of the lock. The school year zipped by on rocket boosters. Bright Start expanded to 2 neighboring districts. Parents emailed thanking me for kids who now read street signs aloud like tour guides. Scholarship applications tripled. The local newspaper ran a profile titled, "Teacher Turns Entrepreneur, Turns Back to Students." Dad would have clipped it for the fridge if fridges still mattered in our story. One balmy June evening, the exact slot once reserved for Jefferson Sunday dinners, Stella and I packed a cooler, grabbed folding chairs, and drove past my parents' old neighborhood toward Lake Hawthorne. Grill smoke drifted over the water. Families dotted the grass. As we unpacked sandwiches, I spotted a lone houseboat with fairy lights twinkling, music leaking softly across the lake. For a heartbeat, nostalgia pricked. The roast chicken smell of childhood Sundays, Mom's laugh before it sharpened into critique, Dad's rare affectionate shoulder squeeze. I honored the memory, then let it glide away like the houseboat drifting toward the horizon. Twilight painted everything rose gold. Stella leaned back, kicking off sandals. "Do you miss them?" she asked quietly. "Pieces," I admitted, "but not enough to stitch the whole fabric back. Some cloth shrinks when you wash it in truth." She nodded, plucked a dandelion, and blew seeds skyward. "Then let's plant our own fabric, organic, no shrinkage." We toasted with lemonade. Fireflies winked on. A week later, the district held a ceremony for retirees and promotions. I stood at the podium, accepting the coordinator badge, and slipped in an unscripted line. Sometimes the students aren't the only ones who need remedial lessons. Grown-ups do, too, lessons in boundaries, forgiveness, and rewriting tired family scripts. The teachers roared. A few administrators looked nervous. Progress. On the drive home, I realized the narrative arc of my life no longer hinged on a monthly dinner roll call. It hinged on classrooms, scholarships, evenings with guitars I still couldn't tune, and coffee dates with a brother rebuilding from scratch. The villains of Act 1 had lost their spotlight, and the moral was no longer about revenge, but about redirection, turning pain into kindling for better fires. So here's my closing bell, friends. Self-worth collects compound interest the moment you invest it where it's welcomed. Mine grew in a scholarship fund, in district-wide reading scores, in a brother's humble reboot. It never grew inside that colonial mansion because the soil there was selective. And that's okay. Not every garden suits every seed. If you're carrying around keys to doors that keep slamming, maybe it's time to forge new ones. Keys stamped with your own initials, not your family's expectations. Comment below. What's one new lock you're planning to open? And if the story resonated, share it forward. Someone else is standing on a porch right now, wondering whether to ring the bell or walk away. As for me, there's a guitar in the corner begging for attention, a scholarship committee meeting at 8, and a partner who'll dance with me in a blanket fort whenever the world feels loud. Turns out the greatest revenge against people who value you by your price tag is living a life they can't appraise, because its currency is love, purpose, and the freedom to say no. Cue the closing credits. No cameo for the toxic critics, but a standing ovation for every kid sounding out their first sentence, every boundary newly drawn, and every middle child heart stepping into the center of its own stage. Lights up, mic dropped. Story still unfolding, but I promise the plot twist from here is always toward joy.